everybody, and welcome to Kaylee's Theology, where we discuss what the Bible has to say on our world today, and today's topic is the biblical marriage roles. I've seen more than enough Christians who pull from these roles to an extreme and say, Christian women are meant to be submissive and not have an opinion to the point that the husbands have total control. I've also seen enough Christians who do the complete opposite and say, Christian women are allowed to mistreat their husbands in the name of correcting them in love. For this video, we'll talk about the often left out roles of the husband in a marriage and the roles of the wife. Because I'm doing both genders, the video will be a little lengthy. A good passage for this topic was written by Paul for both genders, specifically Ephesians 5:22 through 23. For the hubbies, pay attention to verses 25 through 28. Paul says that husbands are supposed to treat their wives like how Christ treated the church. It also specifies how Christ treated the church, with giving his life to sanctify and clean the church. Then it also says to love your wife as you love yourself. I want to point out that Christ did die for the church. Christ gave commandments to follow, but Jesus never forced anyone to do anything. The same thing goes for your husbands. You are not to force your wife to do something unless there is a good cause, which I'll address in the wife portion. You are also supposed to give your life for your wife. I want to keep things distinguished by gender, so we'll hold off on the women's portion of Ephesians and move on to 1 Thessalonians 4:3 through 5. This specific passage's context is on sexual immorality. It says in the verses, For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you should abstain from sexual immorality, that each of you should know how to possess his own vessel in sanctification and honor, not in passions of lust, like the Gentiles who do not know God. In combination with Matthew 5:28, which says that looking lustfully is committing adultery in the heart, the Bible states the man are not to act intimately with other women besides his wife, and not to look at other women with lust, which means no other sexual fling and no porn. I got two more verses. Ecclesiastes 9:9, which says that husbands should live in joy with the wife that he has, and 1 Corinthians 7:3, which says to give your wife the affection she wants. She isn't an object for you to use. You need to give her the flower, the hugs, the kisses, and the respect she wants. I would like to point out that that passage says, give her affection that is due. So this is going under the assumption she is treating you well. If not, then you don't have to give her the affection. Kind of like a two-way street, be nice to get nice. Now let's move on to the roles of the wife. Going back to Ephesians 5, verse 22, it says for wives to submit. This means to yield or to essentially give up one's possession of it. I believe in combination with the later part of the passage, verse 33, where it says for wives to respect their husband, to not be afraid to speak up and put down boundaries, but let the husband take charge when it's needed. I'll use my own parents as an example. My dad doesn't force my mom to do anything, and my mom respects my dad. But there was only one time that I can recall when my dad used his husbandly authority with my mom. We were on the way to drop me off at a college across the country, and we had to stay at an Airbnb overnight. There was just something off about it that everyone kind of picked up on, but my dad had the conviction of needing to go elsewhere for sleeping. He could just see the car getting robbed or stolen if we had stayed. After some time of that feeling not going away, we left. That was the only time that I know my father used authority with my mother, and she submitted. This is the type of submittance we as women of God need to have with our husbands. 1 Corinthians 7 is also a good chapter for marriage stuff. In it, we see Paul wrote for wives to not have control over their bodies, but they do get control over their husbands' bodies. The context is of a sexual nature. In combination with the 1 Thessalonians passage mentioned earlier, no sleeping around, no porn, no OnlyFans. The Corinthians passage also states in verse 34 that the wife is to please her husband, as a husband to his wife. To move on to 1 Peter 3:1 through 5, we see wives are called not to be surface levels. Quote, do not let your adornment be merely outward, but to have a gentle and quiet spirit, and that specifically pleases the Lord. Titus 2 talks about some of the things wives should do. Love their husbands and children and be homemakers. This doesn't mean you have to give up working. It means that you are meant to raise children should you have them. Personally, when I have children, I will either not work or work part-time to take care of them. To kind of sum it up, husbands, give your life to your wife. Don't force her to do stuff. Don't lust or act sexually with other women. Live in joy with your wife. Give her the affection she wants. Wives, submit to your husband, stay faithful, be gentle and quiet, and love your husbands and be homemakers. I want to close with one final passage. 1 Corinthians 7:10-11 states that you are not to leave your spouse. Thank you for watching. If you want to know what really constitutes as a biblical marriage, check out the video I made on that. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a blessed day.